Okay, one of the jobs of a formatter is, we've talked about this in different videos, but I'm going to specifically talk about it in this video alone. One of the things is balanced pages. Now, you'll notice if you're using the Alt19 Creative template, I have everything set to align to the grid. And the grid is basically all these blue lines that you see behind the text. So these are the grid. And we adjust that grid anywhere, right over here, preferences, grids. I had to shut my door. And this is the grid here. Increment every 14 points. So that's the grid. Now, we want our pages to be balanced at the bottom of every page. And so one of the steps at the very end of book design would be to balance those pages. Also, another thing that I check for is H&J violations. It's really J violations because there really are never any hyphenation violations. What a J violation is a justification violation, all right? So for chapter text, we have our justification settings. If you're using the template I have, are these right here. Now, these are custom ones that I have used for many, many years. These are not the default values. These are values that I have used based on what I think looks best, what I've tweaked throughout the years. And sometimes I do change them based on the font. We may need more word spacing or more letter spacing or less, and so you would adjust them here. So what what these settings mean is that, with justified text, what InDesign is doing is it's taking a whole entire paragraph based on these justifications that you set, based on the point size and everything. It is taking them and laying out that paragraph the best way possible to meet these justification settings, all right? However, it's not always possible to follow those justification settings. Some paragraphs just aren't possible to do that. And InDesign lets you know what those are, but you have to tell it to show you. So under Edit, Preferences, Advanced Type, I can never remember, Composition. If you take and turn on H&J violations, it's going to show you some yellow highlighted text. Now, if you show your print preview, it's not yellow highlighted, so you can only see this in the non-print preview, in the regular view. So it's yellow. So this just means that this particular line cannot conform to those justification settings. So what it's telling me is that the letter spacing is probably wider than it is, because first, we don't want to have a runt. So if we had that down here, yeah, it makes this line look better, and it makes that justification look better, and it's no longer in violation. However, we have a runt. So you have to figure out, do you want a runt, or are you okay with that slightly wide space? It's better to have the wide space. Most people are not even going to notice, and most books will have some of those lines throughout where it's going to look a little bit more spaced or a little bit tighter. All right, so here's another one. Now, InDesign lets you know about these justification warnings in two colors. There's a light yellow, and then there's a dark yellow. This one's fine. This one's fine. I'm trying to show you. This one's the lightest yellow, which means it's really not a huge, drastic violation. This one's a little bit darker. So you, in situations like this, you can decide to maybe hyphenate a word that maybe isn't in InDesign's dictionary, like this melodramatically. So you could do that manually. I'm trying to find a big offender. That one's not terrible. You'll be able to tell the big offenders because they're going to be bright yellow. So we may not have too many. So this one's a little bit brighter. This one's lighter, but there are some that happen. So when it comes to correcting these, if they're the pale yellow, I typically don't do too much to it. Sometimes I will take a look at the ones that are a little bit of the darker, the medium yellow. And there's really not much you can do with this paragraph, because if you brought Scotland Yard up here, then you've got it really squashed, and we don't want that. And we can't hyphenate a proper noun, so I'm just going to live with this one. And if we look at it, it's still readable. It's still fine. Again, this is a proper word, so we can't hyphenate that. And here's a pretty bright yellow, all right? And unfortunately, I will try to correct these, but unfortunately this is not one that we can correct, because if we try to fit Miss Dimworthy, I'd rather have them spaced out than too tight, but although that's not too terrible, so we could probably get away with that. So that's what the H&J violations are, and that's how towards the end of your book formatting, you need to pay attention to those as you're balancing pages.